Alright, we're going to do some XDm 9mm 525 upgrades. Got a PRP trigger, take out the stock one, and then I'm going to put some weight on the guide rod. I'm going to put some lead weights in there and then see how it works. Hopefully go out to the range this weekend, get some video. I'm obviously going to take more than one gun. Alright guys, we're going to get started on the Ultimate PRP drop-in max grade whatever trigger kit for the XDm. These are the pieces that you will be taking out of your gun that you won't need. You got a trigger, sear, disconnector, and you have two springs. One's your trigger spring and one's your sear spring. So all these, obviously I've already done it, but I'm going to take it apart and put it back together one more time. Can't hurt being that I've done it about 20 times now. Okay, so first thing you want to do, you have a pin coming in right here. There's a pin right here. I am taking this Leatherman. I just grab it, not too hard, and push it out a little bit. Just a little bit. Because you got that spring right there. And you want to release the pressure on that, so when you do actually take out the sear pin, that don't go flying everywhere. And after you get the spring out, you can just push it the rest of the way, that first pin, and just kind of make it flush to where it's out of the way. Next, you grab your punch. I think this is a 1/16. Doesn't matter which way you go. Some people go this way. I actually like to go this way with it, so let me switch hands real fast. And after I've hammered it out so many times, I should just be able to push it out just like that. Popped out a little quicker than I expected. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it in though, just seated. Slowly take it out. Alright, my spring fell out, and everything else should just come along with it. There we go. Alright, so we got our PRP sear. It's your PRP, I think it's a disconnector, spring, and then this is the original ejector that you'll be putting back in, so you keep the same one. Like I said, the parts I showed you are the parts that you will not be using anymore. So the hardest part about this process is making the sear fit. Now on the manual, they give you, on the sear, you got this little bump coming out here, and then you got this little raised surface, and you have to sand it down a little bit so it can free float with all the stuff in it, because it's made a little wider to fit. You know, this is an XDm in general, you know, 9, 40, 45, so it fits all of them. So you got to kind of make each sear the biggest one and then work it down. I still probably need to work it down a little bit, but my gun fires, and so I'm not gonna, not gonna mess with it. Another thing they say is when you push in the safety lever in, the rear safety, and you pull the trigger right here, when you pull the trigger, your sear should go flush. Mine is like a hair above, and I'm not gonna mess with it. I might do a little sanding. Let's do a little sanding just to show you what I do. I got two kinds. I got can't remember what kind this first sandpaper is, but I know this is wet. This is wet sanding paper, and this is some rough. Here you just take your sear, put that edge on there, because obviously it's raised. It'll work. And obviously this isn't something you want to sand on like a curved surface or something like that. You want to do it on a nice flat surface. And I even put some CLP on the afterwards to make sure it stayed smooth and nice and neat. So you'll say I sanded that down to the exact specifications for my gun. Everything's ready. Now what I can do is I got this pin. So I got this pin hanging off right here. Just slide it in just a hair, just so you can just stick this on there. This should be the disconnector. Bing. Sits right in, right? Everything good. Oh, you know what I forgot to add? When I took my, I think this is a transfer bar or whatever, out. Let's see if we can see this in here. Because this kind of caught me off guard. Because I took the whole thing apart and it kind of screwed me up. Let me grab a flashlight. Once again, this little U-shaped thing that I'm touching, all the way up, this will go backwards if you take out this bar, if you take apart the trigger part first. So I recommend just doing one piece at a time and taking it apart. Because it went forward on me and I had no idea which way it was supposed to go. So whatever, I got it, I figured it out. So you put this back in there, nice and neat. And you want to push it just a hair further. Sorry. Put the sear in. Got it all perfect. Sear's not going to be too big of a pain in the ass. I had to push the ejector pin over a little more so I could get the sear in. It also helps if you hold in the grip safety while you're trying to get the sear back in. And it's not going to be an easy process. Just, you know, take your time, think about what you're doing. That'll fall out the bottom probably like a million times as you slowly fit the gun back together. There's my fucking hammer time. It's in there. And then I take the ejector, and I still got the pin out a little bit for the ejector. I slide that on there and then I rock that in. Of course, it always sounds easier than it is. These people that make these videos practice a lot. I have only done it, I've taken this apart probably about 5 times, and still, every time a lovely pain in the ass. So, you got everything in. Tap the pin a little more, and of course I went too far, because you still got to get your spring in. You just come back and you pull on the pin a little bit and make it work. That should be enough. Slide the pin in, or the spring. So it doesn't matter which way you put the spring, the prongs will be facing outward regardless. Either way will work. There's no big deal there. Alright, so I got the spring in line. I held it with one hand, and with the punch I tapped the pin a little further. I'm going to go ahead and just seat it all the way back because I'm not taking it out again. Of course, the ejector is misaligned. Not too bad. Now, some people, I don't know, this is probably the easier part. Tap the ejector, the small pin, a little forward that you have in front of it. And what I did is I pushed down on the spring like this so far. I take a 1/8 punch and use the tip of that and slide it underneath. Now I did have a few times where it slipped and my finger's still there trying to hold it, but it came back, and that little bit of force didn't really feel too well, but it did work. So did work. Everything went well. Let's finish tapping this pin in. That pin's done. Take the disconnector back. Make sure your sear moves. Definitely moves now. All the way down there. They say when you're looking at it like this. Let me zoom in for you. You're looking at this. See my sear right there sticking out the top? See how it's going up and down? Right there. The trigger also doesn't go all the way to the rear until you have the slide back on. So mine will go down all the way, which is why it works. But right now it will not, because I do not have the top of the slide on. So the next part we need to do is we need to disassemble the trigger, which is not that hard. This is probably the easier part of the two. The small pieces are always the bigger pain. So you take your, just like everybody else, take your slide. This is slide lever. Rotate it at like 11 o'clock. Pull on it. As you pull it out, you just twist. And she'll just come on out. Bingo. Slide lever out. Let me move my light real fast. I want you guys to get a real good view of this. I'm trying to be detailed as possible to help people out, because even though I looked at 123 Powdered River, the guys who make this, still the little, like I said, the little thing in the back gave me a little bit of a confusion. I need to raise this stuff up. The way I raise stuff up is way different than anybody else. I use socks. That's right. Socks. I take a sock, one side, stack it up, because I'm only tapping it out a little bit. I'm not tapping it out all the way. There's one, two. They're not all the way through. So what I do is I put it on like this. Trigger's loose. Alright. And the pins aren't all the way out yet. So we gotta do a little more taps. Actually knock both the pins out, and I just, like everything else, just kind of just place them on the side. They ain't going nowhere. Alright, first take out, I don't know the names of everything, you take out the block. This block has a spring on it, little hook goes in the hole. So then you take a this connector, or this little rod. This is the piece I said if you take out and you take everything apart, it'll move the grip safety, it'll move forward a little bit. Then finally you just squeeze on the trigger to hold it back, and you slide it up and out, and then you got your slide stop. So everything's out. Now the only thing you're doing on this side is you're taking this pin out that slides right in here, just pull on it, comes out, and you're putting another spring in. Just the way it was, nothing different. The important thing is taking enough of this material off the, I can't remember what they call it, so when you pull it, your trigger will pull all the way and your gun will fire. So we got that out. So the first thing you put back in is your trigger. You put the bar in first, go to the rear, push it in, pull on the trigger, slide the trigger back, drop it in. Pretty simple. Put your slide stop in. And you take this bar, put it in first, and there's a little groove for it. I know you're not going to be able to see, but there's a groove and a slot for it. And it just sits right like that. Come on, baby. This is probably one of the harder pieces to keep in because it's just not set by anything until you get that block back in. There we go. Got it. Bingo. Alright, now the spring, you want to make sure the spring stays in place because this holds everything together. Start from the rear. I just kind of wiggle it down in there. Start from there, slide it forward. Bingo. Got money. For me, I like to push the front one forward. I like to put that front pin in first. Tap it in a little bit, pull on your trigger to align the pin. There we go. Pins are in. That's it. Lower part's done. Next we'll do the upper. Here's the hollow light guide rod. So what we're going to do is we are going to take this said guide rod with lead worm weight sinkers, 1/8 ounce. So they're pretty small. We are going to stick them in there. Now if you notice, it doesn't really fit quite. But for recording, if you hammer it down, lead is easily moldable. Kind of just tap it on in and send it all the way down to the bottom. So if you hold on 1 second, I'll line you up in front of my vase or vise, and we'll get started. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the guide rod, the bottom of it, wrap the sock up around it, open my vise up. Now what I might do is I might trim down the first one so I can get it flush in there as best as possible. Take a little off the tip with the Dremel tool. Give me 1 second, I'll do that and we'll get to the important stuff, see how well this is going to work. Alright, I dremeled it down a little bit, to tell you the truth. Not really worth the time. So there it is. Here's the sinkers I got. 1/8 ounce worm weight sinkers. This is where it gets interesting. So you're going to want to watch this. Of course, it's not tight enough. Try not to crush my guide rod. Definitely working. Get that first one in there good. Just making sure I'm not gonna mess up the guide rod, you know. Very important I don't do that. Then it'll be a bad day. And just for y'all wondering why I got this sweet band-aid and wristband, I got a lower back injection this morning. You know, get all doped up on fentanyl and start playing with guns. It's really not that hard. It's like my 5th or 6th shot, so definitely going down there. I like it. Working, let's just see if it went down to the bottom. Yep. First lead weight is all the way at the bottom. Turn that back up. Grab another one. I'll just keep doing it until I can get as many in the front. So instead of spending $80 on a tungsten steel guide rod, I can't remember his name. He's on XD Top Forums. He's the one that came up with this idea. Spend $1.50 on a bunch of worm weights. Yeah, tungsten's heavier than lead, but you know it'll do it. It'll definitely do its job. I know that. See the lead down there at the bottom sticking out. You're at the light. See all the lead in there? Now let's put this bad boy back together real fast. Spring on, barrels in, back together, and finally, what y'all been waiting for. So, that's it, y'all. And finally, the last step we need to do in all of this is we need to rust these rad. Which I got the rifle and the pistol, just because, you know, one's bigger, one's smaller. That's the only difference between the two. But, you know, rifles are bigger than pistols. At least that's what I've been told. Just take it and just wipe down the slide. And we're done. That's it. So, like I said, the PRP trigger kit is very worth it if you have an XDm or an XT. Unfortunately, Springfield just, you know, they make this competition gun, but they just don't put a competition trigger into it like they're supposed to. But it'll do, and I don't mind. I, you know, upgrade it a little bit, but it costs a little more money, but well worth it to make the gun the way I want it. Oh, and I forgot to add that I also put in a PRP extended mag release. So, got that in there, and that's all I'm ever going to do this gun. If anything, maybe a mag well, so when I go shooting competitions, but I seriously doubt it. See y'all later.